Order, honorable members. Thanks for having concluded your consultation with the legal advice, and we are reconvening to continue with the hearing. Honorable members, yesterday, whilst the initiator was reading the charges to the members being charged, Honorable Malema indicated he wanted to make a statement or representation to request the Powers and Privileges Committee to withdraw the charges and stop the proceedings against the members charged. It was pointed out that there was no procedure in the rules for the making of such a statement of withdrawal of charges, but no harm will be done in allowing it. The committee indulged Honorable Malema, MP, and he proceeded to make his representation. The chairperson then suspended the hearing for 10 minutes to allow the committee members to consider the request regarding the application for withdrawal and to make a ruling. As the proceedings were being suspended, Honorable Malema stated that it did not matter what ruling the committee made, as the members of the economic freedom fighters who had been charged would no longer participate in the hearing. All the charged members present then left the hearing. The committee members discussed and gave consideration to aspects of the representation made on behalf of the EFF members to the committee to have the charges against the affected members withdrawn. The committees advised and notes that neither the powers, privileges and immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act nor the schedule to the rules allow withdrawal of charges against members. The committee cannot concede to the withdrawal of charges against the affected members. It does not have the power to do so. Honorable members, the rules provide for the Speaker to refer a matter to the committee and for the committee to table a report to the House. It is the House that must take the decision on the recommendations of the committee. The committee must act strictly in accordance with the Act and the rules, and it has no power to withdraw charges. Presumably, representations to withdraw charges should be made to the Speaker before a hearing commences, as in law. It is only the Speaker that can refer the matter to the committee. Therefore, presumably, it is only the Speaker that has the power to withdraw such a referral. The committee is further advised and notes that the statement by Honorable Malema cannot be considered as evidence, but points out that the issues raised in the statement could have been raised as evidence by the charged members at the appropriate time during the proceedings. The hearing will proceed accordingly from the point where the charged members indicated they will no longer participate and left the meeting. Yesterday, the affected members of the EFF left the proceedings before pleading to charges that were put to them. As empowered by the schedule to the rules of the National Assembly, I entered a plea of not guilty on their behalf. We now need to proceed with the evidence. Honorable members, I now recognize Mr. Van Voore, who will present the evidence regarding the allegations. Mr. Van Voore. Honorable Lotri.
Chair, we have heard the statement that you have made now. I would, however, on behalf of the members of the opposition, would like to place on record that although we agree with what was read in terms of the submission made by the Honourable Malema, we want to raise our concern that this matter, especially the matters relating to procedure contained in the submission, not be dealt with before we continue with the leading of evidence. We would just like to place that on record. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I now recognize Mr. Van Voore to proceed with the evidence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Probably as a matter of housekeeping, and before I call a witness, it is appropriate or proper that the committee has regard to or notes certain matters in relation to the evidence that will be led. We distributed a bundle of documents to the members of your committee, Mr. Chair, and to the honourable affected members whilst they were present in the House and before they left, or rather present in this committee room and before they left. That bundle of documents included an unrevised Hansard in relation to the 21st of August 2014. We had on a prior occasion, Parliament had arranged for each individual member who was called to face charges before this committee to receive compact discs containing the video footage, which will be the subject matter of the evidence and which your committee viewed yesterday. In relation to the footage, and just so that the footage is properly before you and there is no dispute as to its authentication later, there is available, and I will hand it up to the table staff, an affidavit as prepared by the two employees involved, who are also employees of Parliament and who operated the equipment on the day and in relation to the footage. I think that must form part of the record of the proceedings before your committee. Similarly, and in relation to the Hansard, there is in the bundles of documents as distributed yesterday, two versions of the Hansard. The second version of the Hansard is some 38 pages long. And that version has been referred to as Bundle B, and it is at tab B of the documents as distributed yesterday. The numbering in relation to the Hansard is in the bottom right-hand corner, and it is typed numbering. All of the other documents, excluding the unrevised Hansard, have numbering in manuscript, handwriting in other words, in the top right-hand corner. I've noticed this morning that some of that numbering appears to be rather faint. I apologize for this in advance, but I'm sure that we will cope. Those amongst us with younger eyes will of course have no difficulty. Mr. Chairman, in relation to the second bundle, marked Bundle B, being the unrevised Hansard of some 38 pages, the typed numbering in the bottom right-hand corner, we have, and I will hand this up to you, Mr. Chairman, we have an affidavit as prepared by Ms. Cornelia Morecambe, one of the employees employed for the purposes of preparing the Hansard, and she explains the difference between the two unrevised versions of the Hansard. I don't propose to take up much time at this point as to what those differences are, The differences are slight and not material. The first difference is at page 21, where reference to a name was corrected. Previously at page 21, it read Mr. Malema, it now reads Mr. Shivambu, and that's of the Hansard. Then the second change is at page 34, and it has been corrected so as to identify the proper person who was speaking. Similarly, and at page 35, there is a correction. The earlier version of the unrevised Hansard referred to Mr. Ramakatsa. It was corrected so as to properly refer to the Honorable Mr. Ndlozi. The documents detailing that in the form of affidavits are available in this file. For now, I propose to keep it here, but I will hand it up to your assistant, Mr. Ngaleka, at the right time. Going forward, and as I take the witness through the relevant parts of the Hansard, I will be relying exclusively on that Hansard identified as Bundle B. In relation to the video footage, just to record that the video footage, the persons who operated it confirmed that the video footage was taken in the ordinary course of the execution of their duties, and there is nothing, I suppose, remarkable or controversial about it. Mr. Chairman, as we take the witness through what will become the evidence before you, we will be relying on video footage as well as the Hansard. We have asked the person who will operate the computer for the purposes of viewing the video footage to help us by going to various parts of the video footage. I hope that it will not be a frustrating experience throughout the morning session, but there might be times where I ask the operator of the video footage to go to minute 55 and second 46. If the gentleman can't get to second 46 right away, he might start a few seconds earlier. I ask that you be patient with that. As we go through the session, I am sure that it'll become easier to find the exact spot with more precision. Other than that, Mr. Chairman, and by way of housekeeping, and unless there are any further questions, I propose to call Mr. Masibulele Kaso.
Thank you. Is he in the area or in the room?
In the area. He is indeed in these precincts and quite close by.
Honorable members, then can we just allow some 2-3 minutes for the witness to come in? Thank you, honorable members, for this exercise having happened in such a speed of light. Honorable members, Rule 138 of the National Assembly rules requires me, prior to a witness giving evidence, to inform as follows. Please be informed that by law you are required to answer fully and satisfactorily all the questions lawfully put to you, or to produce any document that you are required to produce in connection with the subject matter of the inquiry, notwithstanding that the answer or document could incriminate you or expose you to criminal or civil proceedings or damages. You are, however, protected in that evidence given under oath or affirmation before a house or a committee may not be used against you in any court or place outside Parliament, except in criminal proceedings concerning a charge of perjury or a charge relating to the evidence or documents required in these proceedings. Do you have any objections with taking an oath, Mr. Tasso?
I have no objection, Mr. Chair.
And then do you want to make an oath or affirmation?
I will do affirmation, Chair.
Mr. Tasso, can you say, I confirm that the testimony or evidence I'm going to give is the truth and only the truth and binding on my conscience?
I confirm that the testimony I will give is the truth and only the truth and binding on my conscience.
Thank you very much. Mr. Van Voor, you can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have, in addition to the bundle of documents which I have placed before Mr. Caso, I've also placed before him a 2 or 3 page document which lists the various affected honourable members, maybe more, together with their photographs. If this will assist, I will distribute it to the members of the committee as Mr. Caso starts his initial and introductory evidence. I think it will assist because at some points the footage on the video might not be entirely clear, and it'll help in identifying without any doubt who a particular person is, who's engaging in a series of actions which they are charged with as being in contravention of the rules and the Act.
You may proceed.
Thank you. Can you please state your full names for the record?
Masibulele is my name. Caso, surname.
My apologies. You confirm that you're currently employed by the Parliament of the Republic of South Africa?
Yes, I do.
Since when have you been employed by Parliament?
Mr. Chair, I've been employed by Parliament since 9 May 1994.
In what capacity are you currently employed by Parliament?
I am currently the Secretary to the National Assembly.
Prior to becoming the Secretary to the National Assembly, in what other positions have you been employed by Parliament? And for what periods were you employed in each of those positions?
In 1994, Mr. Chair, I was appointed as it was called committee clerk at the time. Committee clerk. I became a control committee secretary 2 years after my appointment. In 2000, I joined the National Assembly table. At the time, the position was assistant under secretary. And in 2004, I then became what was called at the time senior procedural officer responsible for House proceedings. And in late 2005, I was then appointed as Undersecretary, again responsible for House proceedings and programming of business. And in March, 1st of March 2013, I was then appointed, or at least I was appointed with effect from 1st of March 2013 as Secretary to the National Assembly.
Thank you, Mr. Kaso. If you could please give the committee a brief summary at this stage of your duties and responsibilities as the Secretary.
Mr. Chair, I am, of course, I'm the Secretary to the National Assembly. My responsibilities entail giving advice and guidance to presiding officers and to members of the House. Administratively, I'm responsible for the smooth functioning of the House. I am responsible for the journals of the Assembly. These would include the minutes of proceedings and the order paper and the question paper. And of course, the advice and guidance that we give is based on the Constitution, on the rules of the House, which derive their authority from the Constitution. It is based on the orders of the House. It is based on parliamentary convention and practices that apply not only to our parliament, but the world over. I think it's important to make this point, Mr. Chair, that my service is to all members of parliament. I also, of course, provide advice and guidance and support, or ensure support to internal committees of the House, including programming committees and joint rules. And of course, we provide advice where applicable to portfolio committees, which are substructures of the House, and of course, joint committees. And therefore, I think the point that I would like to make as I conclude this point, Mr. Chair, is that I understand that my being here is solely for the purpose of assisting the committee in terms of the application of the rules, how the rules, procedures, and conventions apply in the House. And I need to emphasize the point that my service and the service of my staff is to all the members of Parliament and all the parties within Parliament. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Kaso. Mr. Kaso, it's common cause. It is a known fact that the National Assembly was convened on Thursday, 21 August. For what purpose was the National Assembly convened on that day?
On the 21st of August, the business before the House was questions to the President.
Were you present in the House on 21 August 2014?
Indeed, Mr. Chairperson, I was present in the House, and of course I was the most senior official present in the House on that day.
And why were you present in the National Assembly on that day?
It is my duty, it is our duty at the table to provide support to the House when it sits. We sit at the table. And so I was in the House as part of my regular activities as an officer of the House to provide support to the House where necessary and where applicable. And of course to ensure that the House, as I intimated earlier, is able to function from an administrative point of view.
Mr. Castle, may I please refer you to page 39 of the bundle you ought to have before you at this time. A bundle of documents, and I'm now referring to bundle A at page 39. The numbering is in manuscript in the top right-hand corner. Can you please identify this document?
Mr. Chair, this is minutes of proceedings of the National Assembly, the date 21 August 2014.
At item 3, can you please read that into the record?
The time is 14:10. This would have been the time when questions commenced. Questions, then you have President, question to the President.
And below that?
Business suspended at 15:48, at 14:58 due to grave disorder in terms of Rule 56, and resumed at 16:15.
And at item 4?
Item 4 reflects the time when the House was adjourned. And I do need to state this, Mr. Chair, that as members would be familiar with this, the minutes do not record everything that occurs in the House. They must be read in conjunction with the Hansard. And therefore, there may be things that are not necessarily reflected here, but that occurred in the House.
Thank you, Mr. Kaso. Maybe just to conclude on this part of your evidence, with reference to this document, at what time did the House's proceedings commence on 21 August 2014?
The proceedings commenced at 14:10.
And at what time did they finally conclude on that day, 21 August 2014?
Mr. Chair, the proceedings concluded at 16:17 after there had been the suspension at 14:58, and there was also another slight reconvening, and then resumed at 16:15 and adjourned at 16:17. Yeah.
While we're on this aspect, you've already, in your evidence now, told the committee that the session for the day was questions to the President. In the ordinary course, for what period of time is such a session, my apologies, in the ordinary course, for what period of time is such a session scheduled for?
Questions, Mr. Chair, are scheduled for 2 hours. Ordinarily. I'm not ordinarily in terms of the rules, but questions to the President, because it's 6 questions to the President in a question session. They usually or normally come to an end before the lapse of 2 hours, but question session is 2 hours.
We'll get to the detail as to what happened on the day in its minutiae and, if necessary, almost in granular terms. But for now, I'd just like you to describe in general terms how the session on 21 August 2014 proceeded, just in broad outline.
Mr. Chair and the committee, the session commenced at 14:10. On the day, which is standard, there were 6 questions to be asked to the President. The first, because the question number 1 was taken, and supplementary questions to the question were taken. And question number 2 was taken. And then question number 3 was then taken. The first supplementary question to the question was taken, and the response of the President was taken. I'm not sure about the detail, but it was at that point that after some activity in the House, that the proceedings were suspended due to grave disorder in terms of Rule 56. And after about 7 minutes, the Speaker went back to the House. The mace was in the House, and Speaker asked members to be seated, and announced or asked members to vacate the chamber, and then the House resumed at 16:15, and it was at that point that at 16:17 the House was adjourned for the day. As I say, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if you would want me to go into the detail of what happened in the intervening periods at this point. You'll guide me.
Indeed, I will. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kaso. What I'd like to do at this stage is to play some of the video footage, and certainly not all. Mr. Kaso, for your benefit, you were not here yesterday, but the committee did view, for the purpose of context, all of the video footage. For the purposes of your evidence, I think it's important that we take you through some of the video footage. If I can please ask the video operator to take us to minute 46.
It has been agreed for the lights to be dimmed. I'm looking at the screen. It looks like there is activity of trying to get the volume.
Sorry, Madam Speaker, it's not Mponjane, it's me, because I pressed Mr. Mponjane's thing because my thing is not working.
Honorable Mwangu. Honorable Mwangu,
Well,
please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
We won't ask you what you are talking about.
Well, I was ready to respond, Madam Speaker. Well, Your Excellency, Mr. President, The manner in which the National Director of Prosecution was appointed has undoubtedly created a great deal of controversy, which does not bode well for the credibility of that institution. Can His Excellency the President tell us what are the measures in place to ensure proper screening of candidates applying for senior positions is done? What should be held, or rather, who should be held responsible for not performing the proper background checks and balances other than being relieved of their duties? What other consequences are appropriate for these individuals?
The Honorable the President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Well, I don't know how much the member knows what happened in the processes of employing the head of the NDP, because I thought that as far as the report, that all processes were followed up to the last. And those who were following the process were satisfied at the end that they can employ the head of NPA. Now, it's difficult to answer the part of the question that you don't know what is it that was not followed. I might begin to discuss speculation, because the member says, was the process followed properly? As far as I know, yes. And what's the issue? Why do we discuss that? Unless the member knows, which then would be a different matter. And then the member could tell us this was not done, and that's why there are problems.
The Honorable Siyabonga Baba Mncwangu. Sesiqedile question number 2.
Well, I thought, Madam Speaker, I was going to make a follow-up, clarify my question, because the President had.
Sesiqedile ngombuzo wakho. We now come to question number 3.
Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Honorable
The Commander-in-Chief of Economic Freedom Fighters pressed that facility there. So we are waiting to make a follow-up question. Can we please be allowed to do so?
Honorable Member, if you heard me at the beginning, we're limited to 4 follow-up questions. After we have taken the original member who had asked the question as the first person raising a supplementary question, we've now taken 3 more, up to Honorable Mncwangu. So we've exhausted the 4 supplementary questions. And the EFF, let me finish. The EFF was listed as number 6 and 7. So you can't take a supplementary question in this particular question, because we've finished, we've exhausted what we are allowed in terms of supplementary questions. And we would like to move on to the question that
no, Chair, on a point of procedure here. These things that we press here, and then you decide who is the top 4 there. It's very problematic, because what if we are being excluded from following up a question here? Because we pressed immediately when you started asking about the second question. Now we are told we are number 6.
Honorable Malema, we've taken the 4 questions as they appeared on the list of supplementary questions. So we have exhausted those 4 questions. We are now moving on to question number 3 by
Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, can I address you? Honorable Speaker.
Where are you? Yes, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, according to House Rule number 72, a member may speak when called upon to do so by the presiding officer. I therefore request the presiding officer, who is the Honorable Speaker right now, to ask the honorable members to desist from such a behavior within the House. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Now, may we proceed to question number 3, asked by the Honorable Malema, leader of the EFF. The Honorable the President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. As the honorable members are aware, my response to all the reports on the security upgrades at my private residence was submitted to the Speaker on Thursday last week, the 14th of August, 1994. I thank you. 2014, sorry. 2014. Sorry, Honorable Speaker. 2014.
Okay. The Honorable Malema.
Thanks, Honorable Speaker and President. Mr. President, we are asking this question precisely because you have not provided the answer. Because you firstly failed to meet the 14 days of the public protector. And secondly, when you responded, you are telling us of the Minister of Police who must still decide who must pay. And in our view, the report of the public protector supersedes any other form of report which you might be expecting somewhere else. So the question we're asking today, and we are not going to leave here before we get an answer, is when are you paying the money? Because the public protector has instructed you that you must pay the money.
Point of order, Chair.
And we want the date of
Speaker,
when are you paying the money.
Point of order.
These things of point of order are the ones that you are hiding behind. Ne? You are very good at that because every time reports are brought here, it's point of order, point of order.
The Honorable
We are here to ask questions and we need answers. Please.
The Honorable Member who has raised the point of order.
Thank you, Speaker. The issues raised by the honourable member there are going to be dealt with by the ad hoc committee appointed by this House. Why must it preempt the work of that committee? So it cannot be
Speaker.
A point of order.
Honorable members, this is an opportunity for the House to address questions to the President. I now give the President the opportunity to respond to the supplementary question of Honorable Malema.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. As I said in my answering the question, I have responded to the reports about Nkandla. The reports about Nkandla is not only the public protector. SIU report, there was a report before of the task committee. I've responded to all the reports as I am supposed to. And I hope we are not going to make a debate on this issue because I've responded appropriately. The issue, for an example, that honorable member is referring to is a matter that arises in the recommendations of the public protector. And I am saying people who did the upgrades at Nkandla.
Honorable, order. No.
Honorable members, please allow the President
always
to finish.
Determine who pays when to pay. It is the government that decides. And the matter is referred to people who are legally authorized to make that determination. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Olomisa.
Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Member.
Can I address you? According to the House rule, Honorable Speaker, a member, of this House, if he's still on the podium, he is not supposed to be interrupted.
On a point of order. On a point of order. Honorable Speaker. Point of order.
Honorable members
Speaker. On a point of order.
What's the point of order, Honorable Shibambu?
Really, we have dealt with the issues of rules. We have got that book as well. Man. We know those things. Can that lady please sit down and we continue the business of asking questions here, please?
Honorable President, please.
I've answered.
Honorable Olomisa is now supposed to come to the floor. Honorable Olomisa, please take.
Can we please be provided with answers? Not hiding behind.
Honorable member, that's not a point of order. Please take your seat. Take your seat. Honorable Olomisa.
Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Shibambu, take your seat.
There's a question.
Honorable Shibambu, take your seat. I have not recognized you.
And he has not answered the question.
Honorable Shibambu, I will throw you out of the House. I will throw you out of the House if you don't listen. Honorable Olomisa, please.
Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Speaker.
Aibo.
No. Please take your seat, Honorable Member of the EFF.
But we are not answered.
Take your seat. I am presiding.
We want the money. The Honorable
take your seat.
To just pay back the money.
Honorable Olomisa.
Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Member of the EFF, take your seat.
Can I...
Take your seat. I am not recognizing you.
Can we address you on this?
I am not recognizing you.
If you can only listen,
then
decide when...
Honorable Member, I am presiding and I'm allowing honorable members to talk to the President,
Honorable Speaker,
supplementary questions.
About the money. When
take your seat, honorable members.
Can you get...
Take your seat. Take your seat. I will have to ask the Sergeant at Arms to take out members who are not serious about this sitting.
On a point of order, I'm asking for to be recognized, Honorable Speaker.
Sergeant at Arms, please assist me with relieving the members who are in this House who are not serious about this sitting to take their leave.
Who are raising a point of order.
I am not allowing you. Honorable member, you want to leave the House.
No, all we are
leave the House.
Back the money. Why are we getting thrown out?
That money, money must be paid. You can't hide behind presidency.
Honorable members, I'm calling the security. I'm suspending the House for a few minutes for these honorable members to leave.
1 hour money. We want
the House is suspended for
our
3
money.
minutes.
1 hour money. 1 hour money.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Kaso. I will return to various parts or moments of the footage we have now viewed and other footage yet to be played in parts. But I think it was important, Mr. Chairman, that we view it uninterrupted. We will proceed later on in Mr. Kaso's evidence in staccato fashion, and there'll be a bit of jumping around. I apologize for that in advance. If we can all just bear in mind what we've seen so far. Before I get there, however, we must begin all stories in the beginning. In your understanding, what is the purpose of today's proceedings, Mr. Kaso?
The proceedings, you mean on that day?
No,
or today?
Today's proceedings.
Oh, okay.
Or the proceedings of this committee.
Sure. The Speaker has asked this committee to inquire into the conduct of members, certain members, on the 21st of August 2014 and establish whether that conduct constitutes contempt of Parliament in terms of the powers, privileges, and immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act number 4 of 2004.
Mr. Klaser, you've now seen the video footage. You've already told the chairman and his committee that you were in the House, or rather in the National Assembly, on Thursday, I think it was, or rather on 21 August 2014. Can you just confirm that the footage we have just viewed is a recording of part of the proceedings on 21 August 2014?
I confirm.
Where were you while those events that we have viewed now unfolded?
Mr. Chairman, I was in the House at the table.
My apologies. While you say at the table, that might be a technical term of art for persons who aren't ordinarily versed in parliamentary speak. Physically, where were you?
I was in the House, seated at the space just in front of the Speaker.
And did you remain in the House throughout the period while the House was in session?
To the best of my recollection, while the House was in session, I was in the House.
You've talked a little bit about questions for oral reply by the President of the Republic. If I refer hereafter, Mr. Chairman, to the President, I mean no disrespect by that. What is the purpose of questions for oral reply by the President?
In terms of the Constitution, members of the Cabinet is accountable to Parliament. In terms of the rules, the President comes to the House to respond to questions of national and international importance.
And how many times a year does the President come to the House for questions for oral reply?
The rules provide that at least 4 times a year. So once a quarter.
And on those occasions, staying with the questions for oral reply by the President, how many questions are posed to the President on each of those occasions?
6 questions are posed.
May I please refer you, Mr. Kaso, to page 57 of Bundle A. Are you there? Can you briefly identify this document?
This is an extract from the rules of the National Assembly. And it deals with, it's chapter 10, dealing with questions.
You've identified it as being an extract from the rules of the National Assembly. Briefly, can you just take us through Rule 107 as it appears at page 57?
Rule 107, Mr. Chairman, deals with the notice for questions and the manner in which notice for questions is placed. Among others, it deals with who should respond to questions, or to whom should questions be directed, and how notice must be given, how it must be delivered, and how it must be placed on the question paper. And the fact that a member may give notice or take charge of a question on behalf of another member, of an absent member, if the member is authorized to do so. In essence, that's what that part deals with. Should I continue with the next page, or is that okay?
Thank you, Mr. Klaaser. If I may also please refer you to pages 58 and 59, also of Bundle A. Please just identify those documents.
Page 58 deals with questions for oral reply and the form and arrangement of questions, and that a member asking a question for oral reply must identify it as such, and the formulation or formatting of a question for oral reply, and the role of the speaker in dealing with notice of question for oral reply. That deals with if a question requires information of a statistical nature, that the speaker may direct that the question be placed for written reply, and that the question must be placed on the question paper. May I proceed to page 59? All right. And page 59 at the top deals with a sequence of questions on the question paper, and the fact that the sequence of questions on the question paper is determined by the Chief Whip's Forum. And this, Mr. Chair, occurs at the commencement of a parliament, ordinarily. And Rule 109 deals with questions to ministers, and that they must be dealt with in terms of clusters of portfolios of government, and the rotation of clusters, and circumstances where a minister, the relevant minister, is absent, who should take the question, and that the questions to ministers be not be scheduled for a day on which the President is scheduled to answer questions in the Assembly.
Thank you. The rules you've just referred to now, Rules 107 and Rules 108, do they apply to questions to the President for oral reply, or are there other rules which deal specifically with questions to the President?
There are other rules, Chair, dealing specifically with questions to the President, which supplement these rules, but those focus on questions to the President. The form may not be different, but the content would be different, and the manner in which those questions are dealt with. For example, the fact that the questions are submitted to the Speaker for approval before they are even published. I think the point is important that the procedure around questions would apply to questions generally, but there are, of course, specific terms that would apply only to the President.
You talked a little bit, I don't mean for you to elaborate in detail. I'm sure that the members of the committee are also aware of it, but if I can just ask you to return again to the role of the whips in relation to the questions and the preparation of the order paper, I think you said?
No, the point, Mr. Chair, through you, the point I was making was with regard to the rotation system for questions. That in terms of these rules, that rotation system is determined by the Chief Whip's Forum from time to time. And this system entails that Party A will be first, Party B second, Party C third, and all that. But that deals with the rotation of questions on a given day, on a given question day. Thank you.
I don't mean to belabor what is otherwise obvious, but the chief whips of the various parties, who would those chief whips be and who would their parties be?
Mr. Chair, in terms of statute and the rules, to the extent that this information is relevant, you have 3 chief whips in the main. Right? Let me just explain it. You have the chief whip of the majority party, deputy chief whip, and the chief whip of the opposition. I'm not talking about statute. But generally, the most senior whips in parties, all the parties, they refer to them as chief whips of those parties. There are parties that are entitled to whips in terms of a formula agreed to by the Rules Committee. But there are parties that would have what is generally referred to as party representatives. But those party representatives would also sit in the Chief Whips Forum. They are whips for the purposes of parliamentary processes. They perform the role of whips. I hope that has been helpful.
Thank you. I certainly found that to be of assistance. Mr. Klaser, I would like you now to refer to page 61 of Bundle A. Maybe just to speed things up, it's a document much the same as the others that you've already testified about. This appears to be an extract from the rules of the National Assembly.
Yes, it is.
If you can just briefly, with reference to this document, and in particular, Rule 111, questions to the President, if you can just briefly summarize its content.
Mr. Chair, this relates to questions specifically to the President that, as I indicated earlier, they are scheduled for a question day at least once per term in accordance with the annual parliamentary program, and they are limited to matters of national and international importance. And all other questions relating to the Deputy President, to the Presidency, must be directed to the Deputy President or Minister in the Presidency. Questions must be submitted to the Secretary before 12 on the Monday, 16 days before question day. And these questions must be submitted to the Speaker for approval. And the number of questions to the President is limited to 6 questions per question day. Sub-Rule 6, where the order in which questions are put is interrupted, the next question session to the President must start from the point where the order was so interrupted. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Klaser. You've already referred the committee to the number of questions being 6. That appears to be dealt with at Rule 111, Sub-Rule 5.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
That rule reads, the number of questions to the President is limited to 6 questions per question day.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
You referred earlier on to a session in relation to questions for the President ordinarily being scheduled to take place over 2 hours. Could I please ask you just to cast your eye over Rule 113 at page 62?
Yes, I'm there, Mr. Chair.
If you can just briefly summarize the content of Rule 113.
113 says that questions for oral reply have precedence on Wednesday, which basically entails that in the event that there's other business scheduled for the day, questions will take precedence unless there's a resolution to the effect that questions shall not have precedence. The time allocated to questions is 2 hours. The reply to a question is limited to 3 minutes. But if the presiding officer is of opinion that the matter is of sufficient importance, an additional 2 minutes may be allowed. In respect of each question, 4 supplementary questions may be asked. And the member in whose name a question stands or takes charge of the question must be given the first opportunity to ask a supplementary question. And the member who asked a supplementary question may make a statement or express an opinion, but may not speak for more than 1 minute. A supplementary question may not consist of more than 1 question, and the reply is limited to 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Kaso. In your experience in Parliament, has the allocation of 2 hours proved sufficient time for the President to answer 6 questions and 4 supplementary questions arising out of each of those 6 questions?
Mr. Chairman, in respect of the President specifically, or questions to the President, I cannot recall an instance where the 2 hours was found to be insufficient. It is 6 questions that are asked to the President. Ordinarily, when you have questions to ministers with a times prescribed by the rules, a question would last for about 15 minutes, a single question. That would include the reply, the 4 supplementary questions, and the replies to supplementary questions. And if you count that strictly, that would take you to 8 questions, if you were to stick to that 15 minutes per question. But that is not always the case, obviously. So in respect of questions to the President, as I say, Mr. Chair, I cannot recall an instance where the 2-hour period would have been found to be insufficient or inadequate. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very briefly, Mr. Kaso, and as we build up to considering specific images from the video footage, and maybe by way of final scene setting on the rules, might I ask you please to return, or rather to turn, to page 64, still of Bundle A.
Yes, I'm there.
Very briefly, this appears to be an extract from the rules of the National Assembly. Mr. Chairman, I do not propose to give evidence here, but I'm trying to move things along. I do not think this is in dispute, and I will come to the question very quickly. This appears to be an extract from the rules of the National Assembly. It deals with rules 116 and rules 117. Can you please just confirm that?
I confirm that, Mr. Chairman.
At rule 117, it appears to refer to written reply. In what circumstances would that arise?
These are replies to questions for written reply. These would be questions that have been submitted in writing, and they have been indicated as such that there are questions for written reply. And these are not questions that are taken in the House during the session for oral questions. Unless, of course, a reply has not been received and the question is then converted into a question for oral reply, as the rules dictate.
Thank you, Mr. Klaso. You have explained at some length the procedure for questions for oral reply by the President, how they come about, and their timing and sequence in the National Assembly. In your experience, if a political party is not satisfied with the answer given by the President during questions for oral reply by the President, what other avenues or recourse would they have? What can they do about that?
There are mechanisms available to the House. These would include, obviously, motions that a member can give, including substantive motions, if a member is such that it should be carried in the form of a substantive motion. There will be member statements. I'm now talking generally because member statements, generally it will be ministers who will be in the House to respond to member statements. There will be member statements that members can give, and there will be replies to those. And members can also raise their unhappiness with certain responses or replies during debates in the House. And where applicable, responses would be provided. So I'm saying members have other avenues that they can utilize, including, of course, questions. And you also would have questions for written reply if a question qualifies. I say qualify because there are certain question guidelines that a question that is substantively the same may not be asked necessarily in the same session. But it would depend on the nature of the question. But there is a mechanism for questions for oral reply. There is a mechanism for questions for written reply. And members all the time direct questions to the executive for written reply. And that does not necessitate a sitting of the House for it to happen.
Now, there are very many rules. I have elected at this stage not to burden the bundle before you, Mr. Klaso, or the bundle before Mr. Chairman and his committee with all of those rules. It may be necessary to do so later, and I hope to spare us all the full extent of those rules because they are many. But just by way of further background, and there are references in the video footage to this, are members familiar with the rules generally and more specifically with the rules which you have now referred to and explained or commented upon?
Mr. Chair, I would have no basis to suggest that for whatever reason members of Parliament, honorable members of Parliament, would not be familiar with the business, with the rules that are meant to regulate their business. And therefore, my response would be that it is my understanding that members are familiar with the rules. They may not be experts in the rules, if there are any experts in the rules, but I would think that they are familiar. At the start of this Parliament, Mr. Chair, there would have been a session. It was called onboarding exercise of members. And that session included a module on the rules. And this is standard in respect of all the parliaments. When I say all the parliaments, all the terms, that there would be what we refer to as a familiarization session for members with the rules of procedure. So it is my understanding, or shall I say, I have no basis to believe that members are not familiar with the rules. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
In addition to being in possession of hard copy or the printed rules, I see you also have what has been referred to in the National Assembly as that book. I see it to your right. In addition to, I take it that members of Parliament are issued with the book containing the rules.
It is, yes. Yes, Chair. Members of Parliament, or rules were made available to members of Parliament. I cannot vouch that all members have the rules, but rules are available on the website, and so are other publications of the National Assembly. So there will be electronic versions of the rules also available. But should a member require a copy of the rules, which happens, members approach us, and we would be happy to make copies of the rules available to them. Thank you.
When members are in the National Assembly on any one day, are those rules also available to them digitally or electronically?
The rules are available electronically, to the best of my understanding. Yes, we've got an IT gadget there that contains most of the reference material that we use, and I'm made to believe that it is there as well. The rules will be there as well.
Thank you, Mr. Klaaser. With the assistance of the person operating the computer from which the video footage is being played, I'd like to refer to just a brief extract or portion, my apologies, of that footage. It's also in that first CD. And the part I'd like you to watch at this stage is 9 minutes 18 seconds to 9 minutes 50 seconds.
Honorable members, the only item on today's order paper is questions addressed to the President. Just to remind us, members may press the "to talk" button on their desks if they wish to ask a supplementary question. The first question has been asked by the Honorable J.L. Fabs. Honorable President.
Thank you, Mr. Klaaser. You've heard the speaker and you've seen the speaker in that clip. Can you just tell us what precisely the speaker is referring to? Beyond asking Mr. Fabs or Ms. Fabs.
The speaker, Mr. Chair, if I heard correctly, was that if a member wishes to ask a supplementary question, they may press the "to talk" button. And then she announces the question, the first question by Ms. Fabs. As I say, if I heard correctly, Chair, and if I did not answer what you were asking, we could ask for it to be played.
No, that's satisfactory, certainly to my thinking. What I'd like to, my apologies, what I'd like to do now is to show you another very short clip from 46 minutes 20 seconds to 48 minutes 32 seconds.
We now come to question number 3.
Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Honorable
The Commander-in-Chief of Economic Freedom Fighters pressed that facility there. So we are waiting to make a follow-up question. Can we please be allowed to do so?
Honorable Member, if you heard me at the beginning, we're limited to 4 follow-up questions. After we have taken the original member who had asked the question as the first person raising a supplementary question, we've now taken 3 more, up to Honorable Mwang. So we've exhausted the 4 supplementary questions. And the EFF, let me finish. The EFF was listed as number 6 and 7. So you can't take a supplementary question in this particular question because we've finished, we've exhausted what we are allowed in terms.
Thank you. Sorry, my apologies. If you can just play it a little bit further.
And we would like to move on to the question that
No, Chair, on a point of procedure here. These things that we press here, and then you decide who is the top 4 there, is very problematic because what if we are being excluded from following up a question here? Because we pressed immediately when you started asking about the second question. Now we are told we are number 6.
Honorable Malema, we've taken the 4 questions as they appeared on the list of supplementary questions. So we have exhausted those 4 questions. We are now moving on to question number 3 by
Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Bearing in mind what you've now viewed and heard, and I'd like you to divide it into 2 moments. The one is where the speaker is apparently engaging with, I think it's the Honorable Shivambu, and then after that, I think we hear the voice of the Honorable Mr. Malema. Now, before we hear the voice of the Honorable Mr. Malema, can you please just explain, there appeared to be a query and the speaker was responding to that query.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. There used to be a time in the House that if members wanted to ask supplementary questions, they would raise their hands. And of course, the Speaker would recognize members, bearing in mind that the Speaker could only take, or a presiding officer could only take 4 supplementary questions. There was then a development, may have been in the 3rd Parliament, I think, where was then introduced a system, I think it was 4th Parliament, with a to-talk button. Now, what this system does is, after or during questions, members will then, those who wish to ask supplementary questions, they would then press the button, and the names would appear on the screen. We call it the queue. Would appear on the screen. While Speaker has discretion in terms of who he or she calls, presiding officers are guided generally by the names as they appear on the screen. And I'm mentioning discretion because it could very well happen that you have 4 members from the same party wanting to ask a supplementary question on the same question. And therefore, the presiding officer would attempt to ensure a fair spread of opportunities. But the first port of call, instead of looking at members, the Speaker would look at the names as they appear on the screen. And therefore, in this instance, Speaker had taken the 4 names, I must say that it has happened with some parties. We don't really encourage it because we believe that the presiding officers are capable of handling these things from the chair, where a party would come and check the screen. Does our name appear there? And of course, I think we always try to explain to members that you would have pressed and other members would have pressed. There are 400 members in the House plus. You would have pressed and other members would have pressed. So the fact that you've pressed, it does not mean that you were the first one to press the button. But that's really the point that I thought I must make, Mr. Chair. I don't know if you want me to continue with the rest that happened there. So the Speaker announces that 4 supplementary questions have been taken, and then Honourable Mr. Malema queries that. You want me to deal with that as well?
My apologies. Yes, please.
Then he queries that. All I can say, Chair, is that I think the Speaker explained that how she approached the matter, and a suggestion. I think the suggestion that Speaker may have overlooked. I don't want to comment on that, but Speaker explained what she did at that point.
Yes, I appreciate that you don't want to comment on that. There appeared to be a suggestion, and I put it no higher than a suggestion, as to exclusion. I think that's the word that the Honourable Mr. Malema used.
Mr. Van Voore. Thank you very much. I was intending to provide a comfort break of 5 minutes so that you can be more stronger because we still have a long day. Honourable members, can we provide just 5 minutes of comfort break so that then they can return and continue?
Chair. Appreciate that.
Chair. Then we should be back just before quarter to 12.
Chair. Chair, just make sure that the witness is still under oath.
Yes. Thank you. The hearing suspended just for 5 minutes. Let's have 30 seconds to be orderly. Thank you. I think let's resume with the hearing, and the witness, of course, is still under oath. Mr. Van Voore, you can continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Kaso, we did view the video footage, the clip that we viewed most recently now. I'd like to refer you to Bundle B, being the Hansard, and here the page numbering is in the bottom right-hand corner. In particular, pages 21 and 22 and 23.
Yes, I'm there, Chair.
Starting at page 21 and roughly 3/4 of the way down that page, the second last entry on that page starts Mr. N.F. Shivambu. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And we heard on the video clip Mr. Shivambu saying, "Speaker, the Commander-in-Chief of the EFF pressed that facility here, so we are waiting to ask our follow-up question. May we please be allowed to do so?" What I'd like you to do very briefly is to just read into the record the Speaker's response.
Speaker responds as follows. Honourable Member, if you heard me at the start, we are limited to 4 follow-up questions. After we had taken the member who asked the original question as a first person, raising a supplementary question. Okay, let me just read again, Chair. Honourable Member, if you heard me at the start, we are limited to 4 follow-up questions. After we had taken the member who asked the original question as a first person, raising a supplementary question. We have now taken 3 more, up to Honourable Mwango. So we have exhausted the 4 supplementary questions. And the EFF, I think there was a break there. Should I continue?
No, before you proceed, just to confirm, and I know this may sound pedantic, but just to confirm, that appears to be the Speaker explaining, by my count, on a second occasion in this sitting,
yes,
the process which is outlined also in the rules that you summarized. Would that be correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And then if you can just read further.
Then it's indicated here, Mr. J.S. Malema, Speaker, and then the Speaker says, let me finish. The EFF was listed as numbers 6 and 7. So you cannot ask a supplementary question for this particular question because we have completed and exhausted what we are allowed in terms of supplementary questions. We would like to move on the question that had been, and then there is Mr. J.S. Malema. No, Speaker, on a point of procedure here, these things that we press here, and then you decide who is the top 4 there, are very problematic, because what if we are being excluded from asking a follow-up question here? We pressed immediately. When you started asking about question 2, we are told that we are number 6. The Speaker, Honourable Malema, we have taken the 4 questions as they appeared on the list of supplementary questions. So we have exhausted those 4 questions. We now move on to question 3, asked by the Honorable. And then you had Ms. Z.S. Dlamini Tubazana.
For present purposes, I'd like you to just stop at that point. Just to confirm, the Speaker had opened the session, had explained earlier on the process of questions and supplementary questions. The Speaker, as you've just read now, in relation to pages 21 and 2 and the top of page 23 of the bundle of documents and at bundle B, underscores the rules of the game as they relate to supplementary questions.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Now, I'd like to move on as quickly as we can, Mr. Kaso, and I'd like to ask Mr. Jerome Adonis, who is assisting us with the video. There is a short clip. It starts at 53 minutes and 40 seconds up to 54 minutes and 26 seconds.
To make that determination. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Holomisa.
Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Member.
Can I address you? According to the House rule, Honorable Speaker, a member of the House, if he's still on the podium, he is not supposed to be interrupted.
On a point of order. On a point of order. Honorable Speaker. Point of order.
Honorable members.
On a point of order.
What's the point of order, Honorable Shivambu?
Really, we have dealt with the issues of rules. We have got that book as well. But we know those things there. Can that lady please sit down and we continue the business of asking questions here, please?
Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Adonis. Mr. Kaso, this part of, or that part of the video footage is also captured in the Hansard, but before I take you to those pages, my apologies, it is at pages 27 and 28 of bundle B. Right at the bottom of page 27, do you see that? It reads there, the Speaker, honourable members, and somebody is attempting to call the Speaker's attention to a point of order. The Hansard reads that the Speaker says, what is your point of order, Honourable Shivambu? Across the page, the Hansard records Mr. Shivambu as saying, really, we have dealt with the issue of rules. We have that book as well. We know these things. Could that lady please sit down so that we can continue with the business of asking questions here? Just very briefly on this part. The honourable member or the member of parliament who raised the point of order, who was that person?
Honourable Ms. Z.S. Dlamini Tubazana, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And then apparently there was an intervention also in the form, apparently of a point of order by another member of parliament. Can you just confirm who that was?
It would have been Honourable Mr. M.Q. Ndlozi.
And then there was an intervention by Mr., I think it was the Honourable Shivambu.
Yes.
And we heard the Honourable Shivambu referring to a book. We have dealt with the rules. We have got that book as well. We know those things. I'm reading from the top of page 28 of the Hansard. When the Honourable Shivambu says, we have got that book as well, we have dealt with the issue of the rules, what is he referring to there?
Ms. Dlamini Tubazana had a copy of the rules in her hand, it appeared. And I can only understand the statement to be referring to the rules book. We have dealt with the issue of rules. We've got that book as well. We know those things there. That could only be referring to the rules book, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Klaso. Then I'd like you to please refer in bundle A this time, to pages 41 and 42.
Yes, I'm there, Mr. Chair.
Will you please identify this document?
This is a copy of the question paper of the National Assembly for Thursday, 21 August 2014, in respect of questions to the President for oral reply.
You did explain in some detail earlier how the questions for oral reply by the President works. I do not propose to ask you to do so again. But maybe if we can move through this rather quickly. Which political party posed the first question to the President on Thursday, 21 August 2014?
Mr. Chair, the question was posed by Ms. J.L. Fabs, Honorable J.L. Fabs, MP, and Ms. J.L. Fabs is a member of the ANC.
In the ordinary course, who then, with your knowledge and experience of the rules, as you explained it to the chairman and his committee earlier, who then would have asked the first supplementary question?
The rules dictate that the questioner must be the one who takes the first supplementary question. Unless there's a person who has been authorized to do so by the questioner. Thank you.
And then, with reference to the unrevised Hansard at bundle B, I think it's at pages 5 to 11 that I'd like you to refer to at this stage. It starts off at the bottom of page 4. Right at the bottom of page 4, the last entry, Ms. J.L. Fabs. Do you see that?
Yes, I'm there, Mr. Chair.
That appears to be the first supplementary question. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Moving over the page, and the pages that follow, I think it's pages 5 through 11, if you can cast your eye over those pages briefly, these pages appear to record supplementary questions following the first supplementary question by Ms. Fabs. If you could just identify who the people are who are asking the supplementary questions.
Mr. Chairman, the first one is Honorable S.N. Swart, a member of the ACTP. And on page 11, you have Honorable Ms. S.J. Nkomo, a member of the IFP. Do you wish me to continue, sir?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I just would like to refer the witness to page number 9. Right at the very top there is another DA member who actually asked a supplementary question.
Yeah, we have picked that up, but we have just left it now for Mr. Van Voore and Mr. Kaas. Just take note, let us not intervene. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm grateful to the honourable member. Indeed, on page 9 is Mr. Gigi Hill-Lewis, a member of the Democratic Alliance.
By my count, there would have been 4 supplementary questions arising from the question of Ms. Fabs, the first being herself, then the Honourable Swart from the ACDP, then the Honourable Hills Lewis from the DA, then the Honourable Nkomo from the IFP.
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And staying with page 41, my apologies, back to bundle A, page 41. It's the question paper.
I'm there, Mr. Chairman.
Which political party asked the second question to the President?
The member who asked the second question was the leader of the opposition, with, of course, the DA, Democratic Alliance.
Thank you. And with reference then to the unrevised Hansard, and maybe we can go through this rather quickly, it ought not to be controversial. I think it starts at page 15. Well, actually, starting at page 14, the second entry, we see the leader of the opposition. Do you see that reference?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair.
And the pages following that appear to record answers from the President and then a number of supplementary questions. Do you see that?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman.
For example, at page 15 and right at the bottom, there is the Honourable Dr. Mocheka.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
The Honourable Mocheka is, of course, a member of the majority party, correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Moving on from that, and at page 16, there appears to be another supplementary question. That last entry there, if you can just identify that person.
Honourable Mr. S.N. Swart, a member of the ACDP.
And there is a further supplementary question, also captured in the Hansard.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
You can just identify the honourable member.
Honourable Mr. M.A. Mwango.
And Mr. Chairman, I trust that in this morning session or this afternoon session in this venue, the equipment available to Mr. Mwango is indeed working properly. And what we have here then in relation to question 1 and then also in relation to question 2 appear to be a series of questions with supplementary questions, both in their number in relation to question 1 and question 2 that appear to be consistent with the procedure prescribed or recorded in the rules and the procedure as testified to you by you in your evidence.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
We are building up, although it would seem at a snail's pace, to question 3. If I can take you back to page 41 of bundle A, please, Mr. Kaso.
I'm there, Mr. Chairman.
There is a third question that is asked, and it's referred to, I think, at page 42.
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
If you can just confirm who the question is being asked by and the member of the political party.
The question is being asked by the Honorable Mr. J.S. Malema, a member of the Economic Freedom Fighters, to the President of the Republic.
Thank you. If you can read into the record what that question was, as it appears at the top of page 42.
The question is, when will he respond to the Public Protector's report on the security upgrades at his residence in Kandla?
By the time a question appears on the question paper, and just for the sake of completeness, the text of the question that appears as it is typed there at the top of page 42, how is it that that text is captured? Who decides on that?
Mr. Chairman, questions are the property of the members who ask them. A member would submit a question to our questions office, and in some respects, or in most instances, the question would necessitate some editing. And in the event that a question is edited, just to bring it in line with practice, conventions, and drafting style, the member concerned through their offices would be consulted, and the idea is that the question that gets published is a question that would have been approved by the member concerned, and that is the approach we would follow. And of course, a member can say, look, you've changed my question. I didn't want my question like that. And we will engage with the member. And in the majority of cases, we reach a common ground with the members, because it is not for us to change the substance as long as it is in line with the rules and parliamentary practice, but mainly to assist members with the formatting of the question.
From your recollection, Mr. Xaso, the practice, the procedure, the convention that you've just described, did that play itself out in relation to this particular question at the top of page 42?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not aware, or I'm not in possession of any complaint from the member concerned, or from any of the members who asked questions on the day, to the effect that their questions were not what they intended to ask. I'm talking specifically about this question paper. So to the best of my knowledge, the members were happy with the questions, or at least they approved the questions as published on the question paper.
Thank you, Mr. Xaso. I'd now like to return to parts of the video clip. Sorry, before we do that, I'd like you to please turn to page 40, page 40 of bundle A. Can you please just identify this document?
Yes. You mean in terms of what it is? This would have been the signed question by the honorable member as submitted.
And when comparing the question submitted and signed by the honourable member, as it appears at page 40, when comparing that with the question as it appears on the order paper at page 42, what would your comment be?
I would say that the questions are substantively the same in the question paper.
Thank you. I'd now like to play another portion of the video clip and just ask for your comment or observations in relation to it. If I can please ask Mr. Adonis to play that portion of the clip at 49 minutes and 9 seconds to 50 minutes and 10 seconds.
Asked by the Honorable Malema, leader of the EFF. The Honorable the President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. As the honorable members are aware, my response to all the reports on the security upgrades at my private residence was submitted to the Speaker on Thursday last week, the 14th of August, 1994. I thank you. 2014, sorry. 2014.
Very briefly, Mr. Kaso, there's a question submitted and signed by the honourable member. That question finds its way onto the order paper. Just very briefly, what transpired in the clip that we watched now?
The President gives a response to the question as asked. The question was, when will he respond to the Parliamentary report on the security upgrades at his residence in Kandla? And that's the reply given by the President to the question.
If I can ask you to please refer to page 24 of the Hansard at bundle B. Are you there?
I'm there, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Now, the question, and just to move things along, the question was, as I recall, when will the President respond to the report of the Public Protector?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
And the answer, as it appears at page 24 of the Hansard, if you can just read that into the record, please, right at the top.
The President of the Republic, Honourable Speaker, as the honourable members are aware, my response to all the reports on the security upgrades at my private residence was submitted to the Speaker on Thursday last week, 14 August, says 1994. I thank you. Sorry, 2014. Then there is laughter, and the President says, sorry, Honourable Speaker, 2014.
Thank you. In terms of the procedure you've described, there's a question. The President offers an answer to the question. Under the rules of Parliament, and very briefly this time, how many further questions can there be, and who gets to ask the first supplementary question?
The member will ask the question, gets the first opportunity, and there would be 4 supplementary questions.
Thank you. Very briefly, how is it
The committee cannot concede to the withdrawal of charges against the affected members. The committee cannot concede to the withdrawal of charges against the affected members. It does not have the power to do so. The committee cannot concede to the withdrawal of charges against the affected members. It does not have the power to do so.
Honorable, order. No.
Honorable members, please allow the president
always
to finish.
Determine who pays when to pay. It is the government that decides. And the matter is referred to people who are legally authorized to make that determination. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Holom.
Thank you, Mr. Adonis. Just very briefly, Mr. Kaso. The exchange that happened there in terms of the rules and a question being asked and a question being answered, if you can just describe that with reference to supplementary questions and answers.
The President would have given the original reply to the question. And in terms of the rules, Speaker then recognized the first supplementary question, which had to be the member who asked the question. And the member asks the question, his supplementary question, a follow-up question. And then Speaker allows the President to answer or to reply to the supplementary question. Because in terms of rules, in terms of practice, rulings by presiding officers, it is a responsibility of the presiding officer to allow or not to allow a supplementary question. In this instance, the Speaker allowed the supplementary question and allowed the President to respond to the supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. Kaasa. You've talked of what happens in the event and what the avenues or options are in the event that the asker of a question, whether it be primary or supplementary, is unsatisfied with the response. I don't propose to take you back there. I will address the committee on those aspects in submissions to be made later. What I'd like to do now is to drill into the detail, and I think this will be a bit quicker, Mr. Chairman, than the parts we have watched earlier, to drill into the detail as they relate specifically to the charges faced by the various members. In this regard, there is Mr. Kaasa. There will be a bit toing and froing. I'll try and minimize that as much as possible. There is included in the bundle before you and before the chairman and each of the committee members a bundle C. Will you please confirm that you have that before you?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And that bundle is accompanied on the top of it, the first 2 pages are an index to the bundle. Just to confirm, for the assistance of the chairman and the members of the chairman's committee, these are copies of the notices of the hearing as delivered to the various affected members. Mr. Chairman, you have already recorded that during the proceedings of this committee yesterday, the members, who certainly those who were present here, confirmed that they've received it, that they've read it, and that they understood the charges. I'm not going to ask Mr. Kaasa any questions in relation to that, but rather to ask him to give evidence as they relate to the various charges. Mr. Chairman, it might appear at the start of this phase of the presentation of the evidence that it is going to take an age and that we will be here until next year. But the affected members have been grouped largely into 3 groups. The first is a group of 6. The next is also a group of 6, and the last is a group of 8. The last group, all of them face 1 charge, and that's the same charge. The middle group, group 2, all face also 1 charge. Many of those in the last group also face the same charge. The first group, though, of 6, face some of them the same charge, and I will try as best I can to group the evidence in relation to them, and I will then deal with that in the submissions later so that we can move along as speedily as possible. But it might be that that speed of movement is assisted if we go first through the charges in relation to the Honourable Shivambu, and I can then, or Mr. Kaasa will then, in his evidence, confirm for the committee which other members face the same charge and which parts of his evidence then relate also to those members. I will, at the time of making submissions, hand up a schedule because I think it will assist the committee, and that schedule will state for example, a charge in relation to not taking your seat when ordered to do so under Section 13 and under Section 7A of the Act, that charge is one faced by 5 of the affected members, and then there are other charges faced by 4, and then there are other charges faced by only 2. But I will, in the submissions and towards the end of the evidence of Mr. Kaso, group those charges by way of assisting the committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Kaso. If we can begin with Mr. Shivambu. The first charge in relation to Mr. Shivambu is charge 1 as it appears at page 1 of bundle C. That charge reads that it is alleged that you are guilty of conduct constituting contempt of Parliament in terms of Section 13A of the Powers, Privileges and Immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act, number 4 of 2004, in that as a member of Parliament and during questions to the President in the National Assembly on 21 August 2014, you contravened Section A of the Act by improperly interfering with or impeding the exercise or performance by the National Assembly of its functions when you refuse to obey the instruction of the Speaker that you take your seat. This conduct impeded the House from performing its function of exercising oversight over the Executive by posing questions to the President and continuing with its business for the day. Do you see that charge?
Mr. Chairman, yes, I do.
That charge refers to Section 13 to Section 13A of the Act. There is before you in the bundle a copy of the Act, and you will find that at pages in bundle A, starting at pages 43 and onwards. The relevant charge for present purposes is at Section 13, that is at page 48. Page 48, the numbering in the top right-hand corner.
Yes, I'm there, Mr. Chairman.
And Section 13 reads as follows: conduct constituting contempt of Parliament. Do you see that?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman.
And then it goes on to read, if you can just read then Section 13A into the record, please.
A member is guilty of contempt of Parliament if the member A contravenes Section 7, 8, 10, 19, 21, subsection 1, or 26.
And then if I might please ask you to refer, still in the Act, to Section 7.
Yes, I'm there, Mr. Chairman. Should I read?
Yes, please.
Section 7, prohibited acts in respect of Parliament and members. A person may not improperly interfere with or impede the exercise or performance by Parliament or a House or committee of its authority or functions.
Thank you. If I can ask you to pause there for the moment, we'll get to the other subsections of the section to the extent that they are relevant. In Section 1 in relation to Mr. Shivambu, or Charge 1 in relation to Mr. Shivambu, is founded in Section 13A of the Act. Do you see that?
So I do, Mr. Chairman.
Similarly, and in relation to Mr. Ramakatsa, and Mr. Ramakatsa's notice is at page 6 of bundle B.
I'm there, Mr.
My
Chairman.
apologies, bundle C, page 6.
I'm there. Thank you.
Charge 1 in relation to Mr. Ramakatsa, I don't propose to read all of it, But if you cast your eye over it, charge 1 in relation to Mr. Ramakatsa is the exact same charge 1 in relation to Mr. Shivambu. If you can just read that and confirm that that's the case.
That's the case, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. If I might ask you to refer then to page 11 of the notices, bundle C.
I'm there, Mr. Chairman.
My apologies. This is a notice to Ms. Litchfield Shabalala. Do you see that?
Yes, I do see that.
As was the case with the other notices, it is dated 18 September 2014. Do you see that?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
And charge 1 in relation to Ms. Litchfield Shabalala also reads that it is alleged that you're guilty of conduct constituting contempt of Parliament in terms of Section 13A of the Powers and Privileges and Immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act, number 4 of 2004, in that as a Member of Parliament and during questions to the President in the National Assembly on 21 August 2014, you contravened Section 7A by improperly interfering with or impeding the exercise or performance by the National Assembly of its authority or functions when you refused to obey the instruction of the Speaker that you take your seat. This conduct impeded the House from performing its function of exercising oversight over the Executive by posing questions to the President and continuing with its business for that day. Do you see that?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman.
Will you please just confirm that that is the self-same charge 1 that is also faced by Mr. Shivambu and Mr. Ramakatsa?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
While we're in bundle C and in relation to the notices, I'd like to refer you to page 15 of bundle C. Are you there? Page 15 of bundle C.
I am there, Mr. Chairman.
Can you just confirm that this is a notice issued by Parliament for a person to appear before this committee?
Yes, it is a notice issued by Parliament to Honorable G.A. Gadi.
Correct. And the Honorable G.A. Gardi's notice is also dated 18 September 2014.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
If I can ask you, please, at the bottom quarter of the page, there is a heading, charge 1, underlined, and it goes on to the top fifth of page 16. If you can just cast your eye over that, not necessarily reading it into the record, but if you can just read charge 1 as it is formulated there.
Yes, I've read it.
Thank you. Can you confirm that that charge 1 in relation to Mr. Gardi is in the same terms as the charge 1 in relation also to Ms. Litchfield Shabalala?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kaso. My apologies. If I might ask you to turn to page 19, staying with bundle C, page 19.
I am there, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Will you just confirm that this is a notice of a hearing issued by Parliament?
Yes, it's issued to Honorable Q.M. Glonzi.
And the date of this notice?
18 September 2014. Mr. Chairman.
And again, reading the text of charge 1, if you can just read the text of charge 1 there, starting with, it is alleged that you're guilty of conduct constituting contempt of Parliament, right to the end at the top of page 20.
It is alleged that you are guilty of conduct constituting contempt of Parliament in terms of Section 13A of the Powers, Privileges and Immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act, number 4 of 04, the Act, in that as a member of Parliament and during questions to the President in the National Assembly on 21 August 2014, you contravened Section 7A of the Act by improperly interfering with or impeding the exercise or performance by the National Assembly, the House, of its authority or functions when you refused to obey the instruction of the Speaker that you take your seat. This conduct impeded the House from performing its functions, its function of exercising oversight over the executive by posing questions to the President and continuing with its business for that day.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kaso. The charge 1 in relation to the Honourable Malema is different, and so I won't ask you at this stage to refer to charge 1 in relation to the Honourable Mr. Malema. What I would like you to do, though, in relation to the Honourable Mr. Shivambu is to turn to the Hansard at page 29. My apologies, not at page 29, starting at page 28. Do you see that?
Which bundle is that? Sorry.
My apologies, bundle B, the Hansard, bundle B, starting at page 28.
28. I'm there, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The Hansard records there that the President, in the middle, roughly, of the Hansard, the third entry, it reads, the President of the Republic. Are you at that point? Page 28?
Mr. Chairman.
And it records the President as having said, I have answered the question. Do you see that?
Yes, I do see that, Mr. Chairman.
Can you just read into the record what the Speaker says next?
The Honourable Olomisa is now supposed to come to the floor. Honourable Olomisa, please take.
Thank you. If you can just give some more background in relation to the supplementary questions, just what is the context of calling the Honourable Olomisa at that point? Is this just an arbitrary reference? Why is the Speaker doing this?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Olomisa would have indicated his intention to ask a follow-up question, and he would have come after Honourable Malema, who was the questioner entitled to the first supplementary question. So the Speaker was recognizing Mr. Olomisa as the second in line.
Staying with the Hansard, the next entry after the Speaker says the Honourable Olomisa is now supposed to come to the floor, with reference to this page, does that in fact transpire? Does the Honourable Olomisa get an opportunity to speak at that stage?
Mr. Chairman, it doesn't.
Who speaks at that stage? Does the Honourable Olomisa speak at that stage?
No, he doesn't speak, Mr. Chairman.
If I can ask you to go across the page, at page 29,
I'm there, Mr. Chairman.
Will you please read that into the record, right at the top?
Honourable Member, that is not a point of order. Please take your seat. Take your seat. Then Honourable Olomisa.
Thank you. If you can just stop at that point. By my count, the Speaker has, at the bottom of page 28, and in accordance with the system of supplementary questions as described by you, called upon Mr. Olomisa to speak, it being his turn. She's called on him once. something happens and he does not get his opportunity, she calls on him twice, the second time at page 29, and another something happens and he does not get his opportunity. Would that be a fair summary? I know that the something happens is a bit cryptic. We'll get to the something that happened.
That's a fair summary, Mr. Chair.
The Hansard then goes on to record, still at page 29, roughly close to the top, after the Speaker says, "That is not a point of order, please take your seat, and then Honourable Holomisa, if you can just read into the record what happened next.
Then Mr. N.F. Shivambu says, Honourable Speaker. And then the Speaker says, Honourable Shivambu, take your seat. Then the Honourable Mr. N.N. Shivambu again says, there's a question about payment of the money. When is the President paying the money? And the Speaker says, I have not recognized you. Mr. N.F. Shivambu says, and he has not answered the question of when he is paying the money. That is what? Then there's a gap for him. Then the Speaker says, Honourable Shivambu.
If I may interrupt you there, I will take you to the others, and we've watched that portion earlier this morning. What I would like you to do now, though, is if you return to page 28 of the Hansard, actually it's page 29 at the top. You've now already given this evidence. The Speaker there at the top says to Mr. Shivambu, or my apologies to the person who spoke, Honourable Member, that is not a point of order. Take your seat. Do you see that?
Yes, I do see that, Mr. Chairman.
And then Mr. Shivambu rises again to speak, and then the Speaker says, take your seat. Do you see that?
I do see that, Mr. Chairman.
And then the Speaker says, I have not recognized you. Do you see that?
Yes, I see that, Mr. Chairman.
In the ordinary course, the Speaker has now indicated that she wants to recognize Mr. Holomisa. She's asked Mr. Shivambu to take his seat. And she's told Mr. Shivambu, I do not recognize you. In the ordinary course, how would this play out in Parliament?
Mr. Chairman, the Speaker has a duty, a responsibility to preside in proceedings of the House. And I think before I answer directly the question by the initiator, I do need to contextualize this, because this is after the Speaker has said that is not a point of order to the Honourable Member who spoke before that. And if I'm allowed, I just want to, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, just in terms of the guide to procedure, if I'm allowed, Mr. Chair, guide to procedure of 2004, where it deals with points of order, page 164. It reads as follows. A point of order must relate to a point of procedure or order. A valid point of order restricts a member's right not to be interrupted. Accordingly, such an interruption is only allowed if it calls attention to a point of order or a point of privilege. In other words, it must relate to the rules or to parliamentary practice. One of the functions of the chair is to protect the rights of members. Therefore, the chair will not allow members to raise what are clearly not valid points of order. For example, points of order should not be used to respond to matters raised by the member speaking or to dispute facts. Then it goes on to say, members should not raise spurious points of order to disrupt the member speaking or in an attempt to respond to the member speaking. The chair will regard this as an abuse of the rules of procedure, and this practice lays a member open to not being recognized by the chair. Ordinarily, Mr. Chairman, if the Speaker or a presiding officer has indicated that a point raised by a member or another member is not a point of order, in other words, it's not a valid point of order, the Speaker is not obliged to take similar points of order or similar points that are indicated to be points of order on the same matter. So if a member is not recognized by the Speaker, as the rule says, ordinarily a member is expected to abide by the directive of the presiding officer. And I think for now, let me stop at that.
Thank you. While we're on this issue and staying with page 28, right at the bottom, the Hansard records the Speaker saying, "Honorable Shivambu, I will throw you out of the House. I will throw you out of the House if you don't listen." Do you see that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Prior to the Speaker saying that to the Honorable Shivambu, and if you just cast your eye over the interaction before that, on how many occasions, as the Speaker said to the Honorable Mr. Shivambu, "Take your seat, I do not recognize you," on how many occasions is there an attempt by the Speaker to move the debate forward?
On the same page, there's Honorable Shivambu speaks, and then the Speaker says, "Honorable Shivambu, take your seat." Then Honorable Shivambu speaks, and then the Speaker says, "I have not recognized you." And then Honorable Shivambu speaks again, and he says he has not answered the question of when he is paying the money. That is what, for him, the Speaker says, "Honorable Shivambu, I will throw you out of the House. I will throw you out of the House if you don't listen." That's what the Speaker says.
And right at the end, after the Speaker says, "I will throw you out of the House if you don't listen," if you can just read that last line there at the bottom of page 29.
The Speaker says, "Honorable Olomisa, please."
From having been in the House on that day, what is the Speaker attempting to do at that point?
The Speaker is attempting to recognize Honorable Olomisa, who had indicated his intention to ask a supplementary question.
Staying with page 29, it appears that this exchange right at the top starts with a reference to Honorable Holomisa. Do you see that?
Yes, I do see that, Mr. Chair.
You've already said that's an attempt to have the Honorable Holomisa rise, take the floor so that he can ask a supplementary question. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
And this exchange ends with, again, the Speaker seeking to recognize Mr. Holomisa so that he can ask the supplementary question. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
So the bookends of this exchange between the Speaker and the persons who are rising without being recognized, who are speaking notwithstanding an instruction to take their seat, starts with an attempt to recognize Mr. Holomisa and ends with that. Would that be fair to say?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Kaso. It might be useful just to very briefly, and it's a clip of less than a minute, to ask Mr. Jerome Adonis to play that portion of the video clip, 54 minutes and 46 seconds, up to 55 minutes and 23 seconds.
Honorable Member, that's not a point of order. Please take your seat. Take your seat. Honorable Holomisa.
Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Shivambu, take your seat.
There's a question.
Honorable Shivambu, take your seat. I have not recognized you.
And he has not answered the question.
Honorable Shivambu, I will throw you out of the House. I will throw you out of the House if you don't listen. Honorable Holomisa, please.
Honorable Speaker,
Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Adonis. There were two voices right at the end there. The one appeared to be a male voice, and I know there are people who claim that when they speak and or scream, they might sound like a female. And I do not propose any discrimination, but there are two voices at the end of that clip. The one appears to be a male voice, and the next appears to be a female voice.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
From your experience and having been present in the House, can you identify those voices? Can you put a name to those voices?
Mr. Chair, I cannot claim to know all the voices of members, but in this instance, the Speaker had recognized Honorable Olomisa. So Honorable Olomisa was the next Speaker, and Honorable Olomisa had taken the place to ask a supplementary question, and as he was beginning to speak, then he could not continue.
Thank you. Before we close on this part, the Hansard records, and we have watched this part of the footage also, and I'd like to refer you here to page 28 of the Hansard, page 28 of the Hansard. And roughly in the middle, do you see that there? The Speaker is recorded as saying the following. It's the fourth entry, it's the second last entry. The Honourable Holomisa is now supposed to come to the floor. Honourable Holomisa, please take. Do you see that?
Yes, I do see that, Mr. Chairman.
Having been in the House on that day, was the Honourable Shivambu present in the House when the Speaker spoke those words?
You mean Honourable Shivambu? Yes, he was present.
Mr. Chairman, I see that it is 1 o'clock or thereabouts. With your leave, it might be appropriate to take a meal interval at this time.
Thank you. Of course, that was the intention, that we should break for lunch before some of us fall on the floor. And I think, honorable members, maybe we should give ourselves at least 45 minutes. Then that means we must return at 1:45. Can we do so? And those that are able to finish a little bit earlier, they can have some extras. Comfort break. The hearing is suspended for 45 minutes until 1:45. And of course, the witness still under oath, and normal processes of assisting him as well to have lunch will kick in. Thanks.